Talk, 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 talk. Okay. Sorry about that. Can you now hear me? Was it Whoa Jilson? Talk, talk, talk. Oh, there it is, yes. Sorry about that. Can you now hear me? You can now hear me. Okay, better. Sorry about that. And what's going on, everybody over on Twitch? All right, now I have to restart over with my long rant that I had here. So guys, today we're going to be talking about a few things, but before we do that, let's give a big special thanks to our hosts and the people that always work out with us. Jinx, our sponsors for this season. Guys, if you haven't checked out jinxclothing.com, please go do that. Those guys are amazing. They've been nothing but supportive of our channel, and they're great people. They make great clothing for nerds. If you're not already wearing it, you should be wearing it. Go get yourself some. Now today, guys, we're talking about CPUs. Who here is a big fan of Intel, and who's a big fan of AMD? Now, a lot of you guys out there may think when I'm saying this as CPUs that we're going to choose sides, say which one's better. We're not going to be doing that at all. What we are going to be doing is talking about the different CPUs in your guys' experience. Like, you know, if somebody likes Intel, they're going to like Intel. If somebody's going to like, AMD, they're going to like AMD, each for different features. But the reason why I bring this topic up at this point is the fact that we're talking about AMD's Threadripper is just recently released. And there are people going bananas over it. They're going crazy. They're just like, oh my God, there's like so much amazing stuff with it. Which there is. I mean, the fact you can overclock it by using by sub-zeroing the son of a bitch to 5.7 is pretty amazing. But again, the same thing was done for Intel's chips themselves too. Now, it is a little bit hard to say because here's the problem with most parts that I say with processors or CPUs. Everybody always likes to compare them. They like to say this is better, this is better, this is better, that's better, blah, 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 blah. Every CPU has its own choice and preference, and whatever you choose is what you choose. AMD is more affordable to other people, while Intel is a little bit more pricier, but still offers better performances at times than what AMD does. But AMD's Threadripper is changing that right now as a dynamic. They are actually offering some pretty high-end processing. I mean, for the amount you pay is almost the same you would pay for any kind of Kaby Lake. These things are still, though, incredible. I mean, a lot of the times people just, write off AMD as a cheap resolution to what you get because it's just, it's there, it's in bulk and everything else like that. Instead, these things are actually worth the time and value. I myself run a Ryzen. Now, I'm not going to be impartial because I've also run Intel on my PCs. This has Intel, and I have other Intel-related things. I'm not a person who says one's better than the other. I'm just saying when you look at the two, you have different aspects for it. Now, from what we look at from the release of the Threadripper, we also go back and study the history between Intel and AMD. Intel and AMD have been long-time competitors between each other. At one point, AMD ruling the market, and then Intel coming back for swings at the market because its prices back then in the day still were just the same amount. It is very difficult. Threadripper isn't the choice for gaming, but it will be useful if you use both gaming and heavy multiple thread things. However, I also see reports that not everything you do to speed up even more by just adding more threads. Now this is true, critical hit that just because you get more threads, it doesn't mean that it's sped up, but it's also like the hertz that's going into it to processing that. I know that as long as you put more threads or at least more processing power behind it, it will work a little more efficiently, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the best high-end part of that. Threadripper is so worth. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it seems well, but I mean, there's the part is, what about the speculation of Intel stuff? About their future plans for the X299? A lot of people are still trying to wait to get that. 16Ks for 1K, legit insane. I still get 16 cores for mine, and I'd pay like 500. The Ryzen 1800X still should be having that. Oh wait, no. I only get 8 cores. I only get 8 cores. Sweet. Does the new AMD still increase, in heat and much faster rate? I use AMD at home, FX 8150. Whoa, Jilson. You're my man. I used to use an 8150, good job. But it absolutely requires water cooled to function. How you want it to? So as of right now, as a person who's using the Ryzen 1800X, yes, it does require a little bit more liquid cooling. But still, AMD does tend to run a little hot. As to the numbers or temperature for any Threadrippers, I've not done any, so I can't say that officially. But I'm assuming that I think, if I'm correct, the Threadripper has moved away from transistors and is actually using its own type of, just regular single forms. Let me double check her. Ripper. Let me double check here, because I know with Threadripper, it's supposed to have not that. Threadripper, let's see. No more pins. AMD announced 16 core Threadripper desktop 2 is due to battle. So double check here, because I'm double checking this part. I don't even care about this part of it. Computer article. Now, from what I've seen, Intel is in the afternoon. Threadripper, and where we're looking at, yeah, it's a little bit bigger than regular ones, but let me check here. Yeah, I can't find the exact picture, but from what I was looking at it from a picture earlier, that it looked like it ditched the pins and that it has its own. There we go. Thank you so much. Some interesting benchmarks in Dutch, though. So let's see what we got here. The Threadripper at the 1950X. So let's double check and see what we got here. All right, so the hardware for the Netherlands, yes, please translate. I cannot read, I love you, Critical Hit, but I cannot sit there and read any Northlandic kind of stuff. I'm horrible with that. Okay, cool. I will take the cookies off that. All right, so Adobe Light Box 78, was it 7820X? Wow. Wow. Is that really true? So what we're looking at here is in the score ranked of everything. It says the Intel Core i77K box runs at 136. Is this the temps for it? Adobe Lightroom. Okay. So they were doing Adobe Lightroom at export. The i7-7740X box ran pretty close to about 36 seconds in time. Is this the amount of time it takes to the export? Okay. And the speed. Oh, okay, so the way it's running itself right now. It seems that Intel comes out just a little bit squeaky on it. Let me double check to see what these stats mean on them. From what we're looking at here. This is quite interesting. And we'll have to say this, the Threadripper, going through it. I wish they would just translate this again, because I just asked for it to translate. It said processor and then translate. Translate again for me! AMD Threadripper AMZ review, AMD Turigan Dialoden. Again, still not reading that part. It's not translating it for me at any point. So I'm just going to say right here, what are the benchmarks you're talking about, Critical Hit? Yes, translate. Please translate. All right. At Adobe Lightroom, we export a large number of raw images, JPEG, various artifacts, large images through the script. Second test, we measured it takes a look at time. Lightroom test seems to be at scale better in large numbers and memory channels with more cores. All processors are quad channel, DDR4, go ahead. Both Threadrippers find the connection to Intel. The Photoshop benchmark contains several effects and filters that multi-threads and difference between the two. The Premiere benchmark shows the true power of 12 and 16 CPU cores. The Threadripper 1950X completes hardware info.tv rendering at 11% faster than the Core i970X. Wow, really? Maybe this is better. Was it video cards? Oh, there we go. Well, no, it makes sense in what it's saying here in the readout, and that's what I was saying. So as they're looking through the Threadrippers to the Intel Core, it says that it performed at 11% better. Looking through these stats, you can see that it was rendering out at different points, but from what they had was at 135 seconds to 36 seconds. It's minor fractions that you're seeing from what it looks like of the X series against the Threadripper, which is great because I think seeing that kind of comparison between the two allows people to kind of be at multitasking. Threadrippers themselves are actually doing better. Oh wait a minute, hold on. Let's see. No. Oh man, it's going down there. Oh, there it is. So what we're looking at here, minor fractions of seconds from these processing powers. So if you were going like a Threadripper and versus, like an X series, it looks like the X series is just fractions. Small, like 10 seconds is the difference between the two. So, so against a consumer, I think in B2B it might be a little bit different. Let's see here, Adobe Photoshop, Core 790X boxed. Let me double check to make sure that is correct on that one. Because I don't like to give out false information. When I do that kind of stuff, it makes me kind of mad. Or it's like, oh, what is this? So let's look at X299 real quick. Double checking. I'll go over here. Sorry, I know a lot of you are like, oh, what are you doing about that? Okay, so X29 setups here for the chips. If you guys don't know what the X299 is, the new form for Intel's new X series. So I feel like a lot of people get confused when I say X299 and X399. They'll be like, what? It's like, yeah, sorry, wasn't trying to be a douche. Wasn't trying to be a douche. Was just trying to say. Okay, so for the markout 790X 10 cores as what you have here. So the X series itself. Okay, so those are the X series themselves when they have it right next to it. So it seems like the 7820X boxed outperforms 24, 24, 25. The Threadripper does it in 25, running it at red, and the 1920 Threadripper too. So they're not toppling it, but they're super close to what it looks like in the benchmarks here. Intel already has the i9 name ready for this. It was at Gufftown CPUs for the socket 1366, first gens i7s I heard. Oh, very nice. And where did you hear this from the source on it too? So with that said, we can definitely see that this is definitely competitive. The Threadripper themselves have always been, you know, kind of doubted, like they wouldn't reach the full potential as like Intel's chips. But Intel was basically kind of rumored that, well, not rumored, I mean they really do, but more or less they themselves are actually sitting in the position to actually release another new chipset themselves. Yep, they're definitely competitive. Yes, they are competitive. It looks like, from what I'm seeing here, I mean, when you say critical hit, not for gaming, I literally gamed on my AMD Ryzen 1800, and I have not had an issue. So, I mean, like, I don't know if it's going to be 100% correct about that, because I would assume that they might be, you know. I have not had an issue. So, I mean, like, I don't know if it's going to be 100% correct about that. So, I mean, when we look at and like how it's done, yes. I can't hear you. Audio, there it goes. And sorry, guys, I am reading, so I can make sure you can definitely look at it. But so what we're seeing here is a comparison for workloads. It seems that Ryzen or AMD's Ryzen itself is actually is good for kind of more workload-ish kind of stuff. While gaming seems to be more of the Intel route of things. I mean, that's what we're looking at on their stances to how things are built. But putting them side to side running at the same time would be something we need to see more of. I mean, what do you guys, what's your feedback? I mean, I've already heard that some people are excited about Threadripper. We've already heard that, you know, that they were more about Intel. Why do you choose the difference between the two? What do you think between Intel and AMD is that you love about it? You know, is it because the brand themselves have somehow made you feel welcomed or not? And Woe Jilson, are you trying to actually build your own system right now? Or are you trying to pick out what's kind of CPU that you want? Yeah, there we go, look at that, there we go. Anyway, so on top of that, you know, we look at the two on that competitive part, and like we know that Ryzen itself rolled out, and it was about gaming, as they've usually stated for themselves for it. Now, as a streamer, I've never had any issues either, and I've seen very crisp results, but I haven't also been able to get my hands on an X299 and play with that. I mean, I would love to have both in a computers and just try them, like same build, same graphics cards, to see what processes more. These kind of things tend to be tentative to people and their preferences. But as we see right now in the CPU world, or you know, in the PC world itself, these two are going constantly head to head. These are what seem to make headlines and have people clashing. And I think it's interesting though, because I mean, are they really competing, or are they literally just saying who can outperform each other in that? Yes, I'm basically planning for a future build. And where are you leaning towards so far, Will Jilson? I just meant that the Threadripper has less performance in games, even more than Ryzen. I didn't mean it was insufficient though, because it will beat most old gen platforms which still run games well. Yes, this is very true. Okay, so that's what you were saying, Critical. I was thinking like, no, I mean, it's for gaming and for streaming. It's done very well for itself. But the Threadripper. Now, for this kind of thing to happen, we definitely see that it looks like with its payload that Threadripper is more or less used for heavy tasking. So like any video exporting, any After Effects, anything that would require a lot more into it, seems that's where they're going more of a B2B, was it B2B route, and more instead of more of a consumer route. Now, I mean, do you guys think that Intel's more focused on an Intel route, or do you guys think they are less focused and that they are actually trying to compete with more of the B2B with AMD? Let's see, here we go. So let's set that up to this point. Let's see, we got to pull this up here and we're going to look at this. Let's see, the Threadripper. I mean, I was looking about some of the reviews and some of the stuff they had today. It was very impressive. Very impressive to where it was standing and where it was at. So, I mean. Also, this is what I meant with Glufton i9. Let's hit Tech Power app and see this. This is 2009. Okay. That's what we got here. Codename Core i Core 9. Oh, got you. Yes, I won't go any further than what I've been provided here in this information. There's a lot more to it on that point. What up, Firebeef? It's good to see you, buddy. How you doing, man? Have you been keeping up with our discussion so far of what we've been talking about? All right, so compose music, orchestra, Threadripper, read the blog. Threadripper. Who is AMD? Who's Threadripper for? AMD's Threadripping is for creating, which I think is great because I love creating. Nope, was playing PUBG. Well then, sir, you've just made me upset. You've done whatever you want to do. But no, it seems that what we're looking at so far is that with the Threadripper is for creating, so that means we're looking more at the creative field. And that's where I'm kind of also wondering is, with Vega, the same thing. Is that where their route should be, or is that where they're going with it? I mean, Vega itself is coming out itself soon. I got my chicken dinner. Was that on first person you got your chicken dinner, or was it on something else? If you tell me third person, of course you would have gotten it, because a lot of people are not playing that anymore. Not trying to be a douche, just saying. All right. Oh, that's off AMD's site. Let's see. And a squad. First person squad. All right. You get, then you get my approval. There's your golf clap. Hopefully you feel good about that. Let's see, all chips are unlocked for overclocking and adventures. All right, so from what we know so far from the specs of what the Threadripper has, the features of 16 cores with simultaneous multi-threading for 32 threads for computer power. The base clock speed of the chip is 3.4 gigahertz to 4 gigahertz boost speed. The Ryzen Threadripper in 1928 was at X799 on Amazon, will feature 12 cores with SMT and 24 threads for compute power. The base clock speed of the chip is 3.5 with 4.8 gigahertz boost, which is kind of cool. The Ryzen Threadripper 1900X will feature 8 cores with SMT for 16 threads of compute power, similar to the Ryzen 7 1800X, but slotting the more capable X03E05 motherboards. The 1900X was at base clock speed is 3.8 with the 4 gigahertz boost speed. Still good. Memory, quad channel DDR4, platform X399. All chips are unlocked for overclocking and adventures. Well, hello, Mr. Overclocking. Have you heard me? AMW, you got an ARM final kill? Good to know. Both parts will be 180 watts DDP chips. There you go. Ryzen Threadripper CPUs will support up to 1 terabyte of RAM when, wow, 120 gigabyte LDR DIMMs are used. Damn, that's a lot of goddamn RAM. So it looks like from what we're looking at too, with the AMD Threadripper, that it's got its own kind of build on it itself, like a super. Threadripper will not ship with include liquid cooled cooler, has been rumored. It will include bracket adapter that works with most liquid coolers. Oh, very nice. How much would Threadripper cost? Well, we already got that taken care of. $999 to the price that it is. So we're looking through these Ryzen Threadripper, iCore 790X, and they kind of go through the benchmarks of where the Ryzen Threadripper outperformed, let's see, here we go, Haswell, Core i9 790X Skylake X. Wow, really? Jesus. So that Threadripper was literally laying it down against the Sky itself. But again, these are two focused separately. I mean, from what we're looking at here, it looks like the X399 boards themselves for the Threadrippers are not really made for consumers, but more for companies on the B2B side. Because it has two chipsets on it. So it's not just one chip, it's two chips set side to side, which is interesting. I mean, would you guys kind of think that'd be an interesting going like just across the two chipsets that they have set up for them? I mean, what do you think about that, Critical Hit? Have you seen this kind of stuff? And I'll link you guys to what we're looking at right now for that. But I do know that Intel has some stuff in the works themselves, but since they're a huge corporation, most of the times it takes them a little more time to work on the CPUs. I mean, no, they work on the CPUs pretty fast. I'm not going to lie about that. They're very fast. Just felt the difference was negligible. To be completely honest, my primary reason for using AMD for the last two builds have been due to cost both times. I just always felt that the difference in the performance as long as you set the rest of the system upright. But I get told that all the time that I don't know what I'm missing out on. But I've gamed on my recent build just fine. What was it? So are you saying, Woe Gilson, that these people are telling you that you've been missing out on Intel and what they have to offer? Or are you saying that you yourself have that kind of, experience, and you're saying that you're not missing out on much because of it? I mean, like, what part are you looking at that you're saying that? What do you mean, oh no, I'm not sure? Are you saying I'm just asking between the differences. Like, these are more opinionated, guys. We're not saying this is solid set motions. This is us discussing this kind of stuff and having these kind of talks. I mean, if you guys want to talk about it, we can talk about it. If you don't, I mean, I can always do something else. Like, I'll go get something to drink, like a water. I gotta get my little crew. Oh God, thank you, water. My throat was getting nice. Oh, other people have. Grab me a beer, please. Well, that's later tonight, Firebee. We're doing beers and blood later tonight with some PUBG and other stuff like that. Monkey beer? Why would I get monkey beer? You guys are ridiculous. So on top of that, ladies and gents, so I always thought my build was rocking, but it seemed like that all AMD builder was the AMD. All right, so first of all, I always hate when people do that. All right, so first of all, AMD is not a bad build. If you guys choose AMD for and that's where it kind of changes in this dynamic. Intel for the longest time was giving some really good stuff. Now, there was nothing wrong with an 8150. I was rocking an 8150 at one point. So to a lot of people out there who are like, Intel's just better and Intel's just this, and yes, at one point. Did you know that AMD was better than Intel at one point? I mean, come on, guys. There's always a different setup on it and where it goes. But now that's what we're discussing is this battle that's supposed to be going on. I mean, so we have here the Ryzen series coming in, its chip architecture, and then the Threadripper Ryzen. So one is dedicated, what it seems like, to more of a task, of heavy graphics, animations, which would be the Threadrippers for its processing. And then the other is more for the consumers, like gaming, which is the Ryzen chip architect from 1800 going down. More affordable to the users. Still running at a really good speed and a price range for it. I mean, to me, I think that's awesome. But, I mean, what you're hearing is, Woe Gilson, is that when people talk about that kind of stuff to you and say, oh, well, you're missing out. You were missing out on some things, but not really a lot. To a consumer, it's really difficult to say that you notice the fraction of 5 seconds to 10 seconds. I mean, 10 seconds can be like, let's count it out. So if you say 5 seconds, let's do it right here. Now that's 5 seconds, all right? Now, let's move down into something more of like 10 seconds, all right? So you can see the difference between 5 and 10 seconds if you sit down and you don't have nothing to captivate you. Most of the times consumers will not see that difference because they're not really paying attention unless they're like, oh, I'm going to take 10 seconds, text somebody, I'm going to look at this window and that. And it's, again, fractions, but it depends what you're using it for. So to be quite frankly honest, Will Gilson, I usually say that if you're going to go for a build whatever you want right now, because this seems to be the Wild West. I mean, we see the Threadripper performing at great speeds, doing great tasks, and we also see other stuff like, Intel's, chips still performing as Intel's chips. I mean, just now AMD has stepped up their game to be on the level where Intel's at, which is great because, I mean, now we have two choices, and both choices are different on what they do and expertise. So don't worry about it. Whoa, Gilson, if it makes you feel better, I was doing AMD builds too, bro. Much love to you. Much love. Such difference may matter for big companies that have the big data. See, now that's where I have to agree with you, Critical Hit, is that maybe we're not seeing this because we are consumers, that the difference in gaming performance is not a huge deal. But it is a big deal when it does go to huge companies, because then that's where they're using raw data, raw formats, and stuff that can actually be afforded by them and their company to make these performances. So, I mean, it's definitely something that you have to really consider in that time span and what you're doing and how you're using it. Again, that's why it makes me wonder is that when they announced the Vega and said that this was the Founders Edition and that it seemed that it was only more or less used for kind of like more graphical stuff for like creation. But it wasn't performing as much as like the 1080 Ti. But then again, you have to also look at like Vega and the 1080 Ti and say, okay, which one is going to be useful for this point and which one's going to be useful for this point. It always depends on how you're going to say that. But I mean, we would have to get those markings. Let me see if there's actually markings I can see on this. Because I mean, again, this is just the release today of what everyone's going crazy about and trying to figure it out on this part. The Ryzen Threadripper is not even launched, which was yesterday, and it's fully able to talk about today. The Threadripper is going against this. Suspense. I would have to go get the benchmarks from our office. But this is to also talk to you guys. Now, we will actually be having somebody on, hopefully by next week, to talk about the Threadripper and Vega, because again, they're both launching at a pretty good period of their time. So we'll have to see where these are at. But, Will Gilson, hopefully those answer your questions for what you were talking about. Now, let me ask you guys' own personal experience. Has anybody else here actually had these kind of experiences? Anyway, so with that kind of said, it's just one of those things of where I actually, I don't know, more or less it's, oh wow, why is it doing that? There we go, sorry about that. It came up and I was like, what the? So with my experience with AMD and with Intel, they both are great services provided what you're using it for. The caches themselves, to the DIMM or for any of the RAM that you guys are using, these all play a part in how your CPU works. Now, some people don't think about that, like example-wise, that if you use, say, something like, we'll use Google Chrome. Google Chrome eats up a lot of RAM, which means you would need a lot more RAM. If your RAM is constantly being used by your browsers, that means it would slow down the rest of your processing as it goes, because it's a lot of RAM taking up the cache that needs to be used to recall programs, unless you're using some other kind of boosters, which some people actually do. Now, for other people, if you were using, say, like Firefox, you don't see that issue with Chrome, because Chrome has their own, filters and how they deal with stuff different from where you have things like Firefox and how they filter and deal with things. Now, I've always been a big fan of Firefox. I mean, what kind of web browsers do you guys like to use? Like, what's the kind of stuff that you're like, hey, I would prefer doing this? What are programs that you use to not eat away at your CPU and to not eat away at your RAM? These are things that I like to bring up and talk to you guys about, because this helps us as a group understand where we are at. And I think by having these open discussions with you guys, it makes a big difference from this. Now, Critical Hit, what else do you actually see yourself like in kind of a build, or like, I guess more or less, like, what do you use yourself right now, Critical Hit? Are you more of an Intel person or an AMD person? And also, if I'm not answering your comments on Facebook Live, sorry guys, some things are really weird. They tend to do these, like I don't know. Sometimes Facebook Live will not let me respond to certain things. So I'm just like, what is it? So I try to make sure that I answer everybody on what they're talking about. Anyway, so on top of that, I have to say that you guys, looking at the whole span of everything and saying the future of one or the other, What do you guys think so far about these two competitors? What do you guys see as Intel and as, you know, AMD fight it out between the two of what they enjoy? I mean, besides your personal preference, what you enjoy or what you think is going to do better. What do you guys think will be better for the consumer, and what do you guys think will be better for the B2B? At the moment, Intel 3930K for, and it was a few years, 7950, 955EX. I don't have a reason to upgrade for a while yet. Makes sense? Hey, not a lot of people need to upgrade immediately. My thing is upgrade when you need to upgrade. Don't upgrade because you feel like you need to upgrade. Like, do it. I mean, for me, I made my upgrade to a Ryzen because I was actually on the border of choosing Intel. And I was going to go with the Intel with the Kaby Lake. And then I heard that Intel had theirs new series coming out. And I was like, well, I don't want to wait that long. I just want to update it. And then like I'll wait till that becomes more affordable because usually they're not that affordable. Because let's face facts here. The average consumer can't just go out and piss away $100, $200 and say that's okay. So then when you say things like $500, that's twice as much. And if they're earning minimum wage in America, that is just super difficult for somebody to actually deal with that. Because most minimum wage stuff is usually taken up by taxes, especially in California. Now, with that kind of stuff said, you can actually, however, find some good stuff right now. And when Ryzen was announced, I thought, hey, I'm going to put together a Ryzen system build because I've used AMD, it's affordable, and I can actually use it in my own kind of computer. That was my logic because it was a good processor. I was willing to spend the difference for the Intel chips because they're good processors too, but it was the price that kind of set me off going like, do I want the newer of the AMD or do I want the, you know, older of the Intel? Which is fine again, not bad. It's just, I prefer something like, if I'm gonna do a full upgrade, I kind of like to future-proof. And right now, having the Ryzen chip, I'm pretty stoked. I mean, it's only been since March. It's been doing fine. I'm probably gonna have to wait like a couple more years, 3, 4, 5, before I even have to upgrade. But again, I work in the PC industry. I'm a content creator, so I may have to upgrade to a Threadripper as soon as possible. But as far as everything else goes, guys, using RAM is a good thing. However, RAM is meant to be used for cache things to be quicker when it's required. Again, but don't, of course, you don't, of course, you don't want to take more than necessary so other programs have nothing left to use. Exactly, critical. I think AMD is aiming for a hard enterprise business since the money comes from them, not the common user that builds a gaming PC once every 2 to 3 years. Which I have to agree with you on that, Raptor X. And that's where I feel like Threadripper is really directed at, is more of the B2B side. Because, I mean, if you think about it, all the amounts of work that's put into advanced programming, you know, advanced, design, it's all through there. You know, the Threadrippers seem like they would be more of the end-all, be-all for that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I like that kind of thing because, I mean, it shows that AMD is taking the initiative to go past the consumer. Now, I know that you say the consumer every 2 to 3 years, which is true, but also people build PCs for other reasons. You know, some have them laying around, some people use them for events. It's very different. So seeing the two, even some B2Bs can actually use, you know, the Ryzen chips themselves along with any of the Intel stuff. You know, I just don't see Intel so much of being one, but for both B2B and consumers. I could be wrong. Does anybody else have any ideas of what they might plan for that kind of stuff themselves or think that they might plan? Sorry, that water was just really good. When I'm talking for long times by myself, it's really difficult. And when I'm reading your guys' stuff to chat, it's always difficult because I'm just going like, okay, you know. So let's see what we got here. How's the temperature there now, actually? How's the temperature in here, what you're saying right now? It was, yes. So as of right now, I have the door open and I have the cooling coming in. So it's kind of a lot easier to kind of deal with this stuff right now. It is very hot actually, nonetheless. So But anyway, it was a hot while ago, and I don't remember. Yeah, so like one of the things was what made it's like so. The way that it's set up right now is that we're still waiting on the fan. I bet it's not as bad as here, 31 Celsius degree inside. I don't know about that Raptor X. It's literally the way that it's heating right now. I'm very lucky that this door is open because the door over here is usually not open to block out any sounds coming in. But since most of the people in the office have either taken early day vacation or they're getting lunch, it is actually open so I can get cool. The issue for me was when it wasn't, it was sweltering. And I'm pretty sure it was above 31. Oh no, it's my throat. Critical, I'm used to doing open speeches. And when I have discussions like this, it's one of those things where I'm trying to talk with you guys to get you intrigued, because what I want to see from you guys is an open discussion. I want to hear your guys' opinions. Your opinions matter just as much as my opinions. So the more we open the floors to everything, the more we talk about stuff, the more we can actually discuss what we see here. This is no open-ended, like, bullshit, paid, sponsored advertising. I don't get paid to, endorse one or the other. What I get paid to do is discuss with you guys what computers are about. Because that's what we're here for, right? I mean, we're all nerds. 87 degrees. Oh my God, are you seriously kidding me? You think 87's hot? This place up in here is close to 100. Seriously, it is way worse than 81. I think right now in this room alone, it's about like 90. Dude, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I call shenanigans on you, sir. How dare you put things like that up there? You, sir, make me sick. 81 degrees Celsius. Yeah, no, it is hot in here. I'm literally, even wearing this is a bad idea to me. Like, it is so bad. Like, if I could do a time lapse of how quickly, I wouldn't even need to do a time lapse. I could literally sit in this room, close the door, wait about 7 minutes, and get super hot. I'd be as hot as any kind of PC case in the world with no cooling. Because if it had good cooling, then it wouldn't be that hot. Yeah, no, it's bad in here. But anyway, so the idea of us is to have this open-ended discussion. Because before, when we had Cyber Insider, we were always discussing news. But what does news mean to you guys? I mean, seriously, news means nothing. I mean, you guys have read it. And you guys aren't dummies. I don't expect you guys to be like, what? I mean, if you ask the question is, what is DIM, or what is RAM, or what is the 4-lane channels of, just any of that kind of stuff. If you guys asked it, I'd be willing to answer it. But as far as everything else goes, we take you as face value as you guys are educated people. So seeing the future of Intel or AMD, or the battling out, as I usually use for these nice little headlines, because you should definitely do that. Great. I mean, I think it's awesome to what they do, but I think more or less is that this is better to have a good roundtable discussion. That's why I like talking to all the viewers on Facebook Live. Guys, always feel free to introduce yourself and talk. I don't even care if you're from another country. I'll do it. Dim. Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. I do love Fairly Odd Parents. It is a good show. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a great show. Anyway, guys, so to wrap everything up, as we discussed everything about Intel and AMD, so as far as we see or looked at and have the discussion to today, is that people are looking at AMD Threadrippers not as so much of a consumer product, but more of a B2B product, which can still be used by consumers because it's in the price range. But I think Intel is more of an encompassing of all things to make it all-in-one chip, which makes more sense to me. But it also, at the same time, too, kind of doesn't. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if AMD is using Threadrippers to be part of the B2B, they can afford that pricing, as consumers can still afford anything from the 18X series or from the 7 series going down, which is another great thing. Because, again, you're offering options, meaning you're not making them pay for stuff. Now, for Intel, it's a little bit different because offering an all-in-one source, still a good thing, because if you decide to change path careers, or you decide to do labor-intensive, or do something else different, or learn, you get that option, which means you still pay the top dollar rate. But it doesn't mean they can't be competitive. But the upside for Intel is that since they encompass this all-in-time one, over time, it still means that they're going to be doing well as to where they will not be as usable as AMD chips over time, as being an all-in-one source. So, I mean, you could see the different things between the two and how they work and function, but I believe that more or less that these people have different options to, really, you have options. I mean, this is no more just a one standard platform, you need to get this. This is actually something where you guys have options to game, to play, and use for different reasons. You know, I mean, I go home and I edit lots of video, and I'm going to home this weekend to edit lots of After Effects stuff. And I may not be getting the best end, but it still does satisfy for me as a consumer. And the same thing goes for read and write. When we look at stuff from Optane and it's stuff that it's going on with SSD, Optane is a big lifter to a lot of people who don't have SSDs or a big 1 terabyte SSD. And it's also helpful to a lot of the other systems, which Intel is still trying to work and figuring out more. I would imagine they're trying to figure out more and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully we can see some Optane stuff in the future that's more than just, you know, what we look at now. Because, I mean, it's a great technology. But maybe we might see Optane-fueled CPUs, which might be kind of interesting. I mean, man, could you imagine that? Wow, that'd be really cool. Anyway, guys, so we're going to wrap it up with this, guys. If you guys loved and enjoyed everything you want to check out, guys, you can check me out more. I'll be later on tonight doing a stream on my own personal stuff. If you want to game, drink, and shoot people on PUBG and play bloody games, that's the kind of stuff I do. You can check me at Pwnedcast, Pwnedcast. That is my Twitch name if you guys want to check it out. And if you guys are here on Facebook Live, please feel free to leave any questions, answers, anything you guys want to ask me. I usually try to check through all the messages and talk to them. But be here next week, guys, as we try to have an official from AMD here to discuss about Threadripper and hopefully go over some more details so we can understand it better. So anyway, guys, thank you for everyone being here. We appreciate everyone for being part of this. And as usual, ladies and gents, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.